Hello, welcome to IDD Talks. My name is Anastasia Lavrina, and today we have a very special guest joining me now from Geneva, Switzerland, David Chikvaidze, Vice President of the Swiss Forum on International Affairs, Associate Fellow of the Geneva Center for Security Policy, and former Chief de Cabinet of the Director General of the United Nations Office at Geneva. Warm welcome to IDD Talks.
Thank you very much for having me, Anastasia. It's always a pleasure to speak to you in whichever language.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining our discussion. And today with you, we would like to talk about the upcoming event, COP29, to be held in Azerbaijan in November 2024. You have a great experience of work for the United Nations Office, and it will be an honor to know your opinion. For the beginning, can you provide an overview of the significance of the Baku hosting the United Nations Climate Change Conference this year?
Well, I'd say that the selection of Baku as the host for an event of such planetary significance is probably the utmost level of international recognition for Azerbaijan. Let's not forget that Azerbaijan has, since its independence, has been going through these various stages of let's say, this recognition, quote unquote. Suffice it to say that it was the first of the former Soviet republics to be elected to the UN Security Council as a non-voting member. I was in for the 2-year in 2012, 2013. And the only other one after Azerbaijan was Kazakhstan. Of course, we're not counting Ukraine and Belarus that are founding members of the organization. Another major element is that Azerbaijan chaired the NAM for an unprecedented number of terms, and this is at the request of the membership of the NAM. So, it's absolutely logical that Azerbaijan rise through these levels, and it's commensurate with its standing in the world. And speaking of which, in this resounding recognition, it's a recognition of and the testament to the role, standing, and convening power of Azerbaijan and of the respect that President Aliyev commands among his peers. Now, there's another factor that the fact that COP29 is being held in what is loosely referred to as a petrostate is also very significant because Azerbaijan is in the forefront of efforts to engage in the green transition. And, I'd like to quote President Aliyev, who put it so well recently: "Don't judge us by what we have, judge us by what we do." So in short, I think that Baku will be the capital of the world in November 2024.
Talking about this event, we should also mention the other countries in the region of the South Caucasus. In what ways you think Baku's hosting this conference, COP29, reflect regional perspectives and contributions to global climate initiatives?
Well, look, Baku is a leader in the South Caucasus, Central Asia wider region in many respects, including in efforts aimed at the green transition. And this despite the fact that, according to OPEC figures, together oil and gas make up to 60% of the energy pie and will demand much more investment in the years up to 2045. However, fully cognizant of this, Azerbaijan nevertheless works hard towards a green transition. And let me just give you one example, the most vivid example. Azerbaijan is the central point in the cooperation of this wider region in the generation and exporting of green electricity from Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan through an underwater cable in the Caspian Sea, and then through Azerbaijan and Georgia through an underwater Black Sea cable to Southern Europe. I mean, this is a major project and a major undertaking. and it will put a huge dent in the current situation with energy, the energy picture. And this and many other examples bespeak of Azerbaijan's key role in this green transition.
Right. One of the key targets of this conference is to bring together the countries and make them to work closer on the most sensitive issues. Therefore, what opportunities this conference present for advancing international cooperation on climate issue?
Thank you. I'm glad you circled back to the opportunities. I didn't want to start with challenges, although we will get to that, I think. But look, it's clear that there are a number of deliverables that need to be delivered by COP29. The primary among them is climate financing, and it is expected by all that governments should establish a new climate finance goal, and reflecting actually the scale and urgency of the climate challenge. And we all regard this as an ongoing process. COP28 fed into COP29, and COP29 is going to feed into COP30 in Brazil. And member states, governments should come prepared with new nationally determined contributions that are economy-wide and that cover all greenhouse gases and are fully aligned with the 1.5 centigrade temperature limit. That would be the main deliverable. Now, for the global stocktake outcome, many have emphasized the new nationally determined contributions. This is a term that's becoming more and more household, and its acronym NDCs should be more ambitious, bring more ambitious mitigation projects and targets, and they need to reduce the emissions as rapidly as possible. But they should be that should be the aim. But they should be submitted as early as possible, well ahead of COP30. So we are hoping that they will be at least pledged by the time of COP29, and that will be a major deliverable. Now, there's the issue of Article 6, which has two sub-articles. It's a technical issue, and it probably will be or could be a possible deliverable, but it's not as high up as the others.
Well, but does it seem realistic to achieve the climate finance target now? How do you see this process? Is it the right time to work on that? The country's ready?
I think there is no right time and there is no wrong time. It's the time has come, and we need to work on this. I think, as I said, the climate finance target would be the most important outcome of COP29. I think the way to achieve this is to expand the list of countries who are obliged to provide funding. And I'm not talking just about the North, the affluent North, US, Western Europe, etc. You also need to include here the emerging economies, Brazil and the Gulf countries and so on. And, in this effort, I think the enlightened self-interest of these countries should be a major factor. There are different approaches to this. You could also try to find new ways of mobilizing funds. For example, levies on high-emitting sectors. In all of these, the leadership and negotiating authority of Azerbaijan as the chair, as the host, and of President Aliyev will be a deciding factor. But Azerbaijan should not be the sole sort of carrier of this burden. All countries need to chip in. The bottom line is that at COP28, petrostates of Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates broke the mold by agreeing to transition away from fossil fuels, a lofty goal. But it was a very, very resonant goal that was presented as a major outcome. I think we need at COP29 something equally dramatic in Baku. And the most obvious issue is climate financing. But it's best done in collaboration with key players, and the group of key players, there's actually such a group. So that will be the most important deliverable. And I think it can and should be delivered.
Well, and we cannot avoid the political issue here. Therefore, what are the policy challenges at COP29 you can mention, and how might they influence concrete climate action?
Yeah, I figured that we would get to the challenges, obviously. Look, there are many challenges and there are many risks, and they've ranged from technical and management issues like a smooth adoption of the agenda, which didn't happen actually initially at COP28, to managing civil society. You may remember that in Egypt and in the Emirates, civil society was seen to be very restricted. And I must say that Azerbaijan is already being kind of second guessed that it will be restricted. But this needs to be preempted by foreseeing civil society places of access and courteous treatment, and basically co-opting them into the work of COP29. Very important risk, but challenge, probably a challenge, would be working with the watchdog groups. They're traditionally critical of government efforts, particularly active since COP28 was held in a petrostate. So they could be expected to sharpen their gaze in the run-up to COP29. And among them, there are such organizations as Carbon Brief and Global Witness and others. So that is a challenge which is there, but it can be worked with and through. A very important challenge is youth as an element, and I've heard personal kind of rumblings from some youth representatives who were at COP28. Despite having a pavilion, meeting with government officials, being quote unquote consulted, many youth representatives complained of a complete lack of meaningful inclusion and engagement of youth in actual policy making. So that needs to be taken into account, and we need to preempt such criticism by engaging closely with youth representatives and setting up consultative mechanisms so that they don't only have access somewhere, but they also feel that they are a part of the process of consultation. And from such issues to major political international issues, the anti-Azerbaijan lobbying impact on selected governments is a major challenge and risk. And the hostile positions of various levels. There are many out there, in short, who would like to give a quote-unquote black eye to Baku in the context of COP29, and that needs to be factored in the run-up, and various advocacy efforts need to be, efforts and events and outreach needs to be factored in. And finally, of course, everything is political in this world, especially something like a COP meeting. The abysmal relationships among the three major powers and the particularly toxic international context obviously could be major risks to the work of COP. So here again, the leadership and authority of President Aliyev and of the Azeri officials who are going to be presiding will be an important factor in the diplomatic smoothing of possible factors such as these. So, there are many others that we know are there, but we don't need to go into.
One more question I have. almost on a weekly basis, we can see how the representatives of different United Nations agencies are coming to Azerbaijan, participating at the highest level meetings and talking about the preparatory work Azerbaijan is doing for COP29. How do you think the holding of this conference will affect Azerbaijan's cooperation with the United Nations in the future?
Well, very succinctly put, I think it will further solidify the role and place of Azerbaijan as a solid, dependable, powerful regional player whose political, economic, financial, and multilateral clout extend well beyond the region and who contributes significantly to the peace and security agenda and sustainable development and climate mitigation efforts of the entire international community. Azerbaijan is a major player and a major contributor in all these areas. So the holding of COP29 can only solidify this role.
David, thank you. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you very much, Anastasia. It's always a huge pleasure to work with you. Take care and good luck.